And we're going to talk about upselling, as I said. If you've got any questions that you would like to ask, don't be shy. We did this webinar last week to the UK and US audience, and we had a lot of really interesting discussion that was generated by the attendees. And it's all very well to sit and listen to panelists, but sometimes you've got burning questions. So ask those burning questions because we will answer them. And we won't ask you to talk. We won't ask you to turn your video on. We do have a new format of webinar that we're going to be running from October onwards, which might do a bit of that, but this one is not about that. So just post your questions in the chat or the Q&A. It doesn't really matter where you put it. We'll pick them up either way. Okay, with that said, I think we should just get moving. So Hazel, over to you.
Hi everyone. Firstly, a really warm welcome to all our webinar attendees today. I'm really excited today as we've got three really very knowledgeable panelists joining us. Two of them are here based in Australia with me, and then we have one from the UK. Our webinar attendees today are spread right across the globe. So it's good evening to everyone here in the Southern Hemisphere, and it's good morning to all of you joining us from the Northern Hemisphere. And during the webinar for the next hour, we will have some questions that we're going to pose, and we'll put them up in a poll. And if you can jump on as soon as you see them and pop your answers in, that would be great. And if you do have any questions you'd like to ask, then pop them into the chat function so that we can pick those up. So let me start by making some introductions. Our first panelist today is Bart Sobies, founder of ibooked.online and Accommodation show based in Melbourne, in Australia. Welcome, Bart. It's great to have you here this evening and to share your knowledge and expertise.
Thank you. Yeah, awesome to be here. I'm really looking forward to it.
Great. Our second panelist today is Nick Ellis, Group General Manager of Tech and Operations at Spicer's Retreat based in Queensland, Australia. Welcome, Nick. Good to have you join us this evening.
Cheers. Thank you very much, and really excited. Ditto to what Bart said.
Our third panelist today is Elaine Watt, creator of the Holiday Let Success podcast, content creator and author. Elaine is based in the UK. Welcome, Elaine. It's great to have you here this evening.
Nice to be here amongst all you cool people. Thanks a lot for the invite.
Now, you'll be able to find out more about our panelists in the webinar notes, which will be emailed out after, and all the attendees, there'll be links to their profiles and to their websites and social media channels. So make sure that you have a good look at the information that they provide. Myself, I'm Hazel Parker. I'm the Community Ambassador for Touch Day here in Australia. And I also run my own country retreat here in the lovely McLaren Vale wine region in South Australia. And our other host tonight is Andy McNulty, CEO of Touch Day. Andy will be leading the discussions this evening and it's all about guest upsells and how to wow your guests while making money. Over Fantastic. To you, Andy.
Thank you, Hazel. Before we kick off, there is a poll, just a very simple one. Do you currently upsell? Yes or no? So hopefully not too challenging for us. Good. Right, let's kick things off. I am a bit of an upselling skeptic, I must say. Although, having done this same session last week to the UK and the US audience, I had a slightly different take on things. I'm less of a skeptic now because I heard some really interesting stuff. But the reason I'm a skeptic is I generally don't like being upsold to as a guest. And I think probably a lot of us, certainly in the UK, are a bit like that. And therefore, I'm kind of curious to know who is upselling and how they're upselling. And I think that might also be interesting for our audience to know whether or not you've had success and how you might do that. So Hazel, let me start with you because I know you do currently upsell and you do have some success with it. So talk to us a little about what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Thanks, Andy. So 75% of the bookings that I take in are actually for a package, which I have set up, which may include wine tour, it might include a helicopter ride, it could involve a tour around a winery and a degustation lunch. So I package everything up into that. So from the word go, I'm upselling as soon as the person is on the website and looking at what I have to offer. The information is there on the website for them to see, and then when they then go to make a booking for that particular package, at the time of booking, I also give them a whole list of other things that they can actually add to enhance that. Now I call that the upsell on the upsell. And I think when you package something up, people don't actually realize that you're upselling. It's there, it's simple, you've done all the work for them, they book the thing, and they have a great experience that they're going to enjoy at some point in the future. And I also, I know that we'll talk further about this this evening, Andy, but I do actually try and upsell throughout the course. So between the booking and them actually being at the property, there are other touch points where I will actually try and continue that upsell process in a very nice way.
And so just give us a sense of like how you did that. So on your website, you have, a certain, shopping tool, or how did you do that?
Yeah, so on the website, the booking system is already packaged up, the platinum package or the pamper package or the organic food and wine and picnic package. So you can, you go onto the online system and that will be booked directly as soon as you click that button. But while you're in the process of actually paying for that package, you will get the option to add further things into that package. So it might be somebody's buying it as a birthday gift or an anniversary gift, and they see on the drop-down menu, oh, I can add some chocolates to that, I can add flowers to that. Oh, do you know what, we're doing the helicopter tour, but I really like to have a couples massage as well. So all of those things are there in front of the person, and I probably have success of maybe 1 in 5 bookings or packages will add extra things on at that point in time. So as soon as the booking comes into me, I'm like, oh, this is great, they picked a really good bunch of things to have a really great experience here at the property. And it's really simple for the customers. They don't have to put a lot of thought into it. It's there in front of them, the description, they see some lovely pictures and they click the button and buy.
Yeah, I think it's neat. I think it's neat because you're not trying to push something. You're quite passive in that it's there on the website, and if they want to buy these extras, they can do that. But you're not overtly saying to them, come and get this new deal. It's very much like, do I like what Hazel's presented, and do I want to buy it?
Yeah.
The poll results, by the way, were about 50-50. So half said yes, they do upsell, half said no, they don't. I guess for those who don't upsell, Hazel, back to that question I phrased earlier, probably did it in the wrong way, but do you need technical knowledge to package things up and to offer that on your website, or have you used some kind of plug and play thing that does it for you?
No, it's all built into the online booking system. It's there for you to be able to create that and add it in. I think the harder bit is creating your package to start with, making sure that you make the connections with the local community and the local providers that you want to do things with, and getting your agreement set up with them. And once you've got that, and when you worked out your pricing, and of course your package needs to include more money in there to cover my time and my administration and my concierge, if you like. So you have to put in a little bit of legwork to start with to get there, but once it's there, it's really simple to do.
Neat. And it's 1 in 5 guests that do it.
1 in 5 guests will buy
an
upsell on an upsold package.
Yeah. Cool. Good. Elaine, I'm going to come to you, but there's going to be another question that we're putting up now. So this is about what technology you use to upsell, if you do indeed upsell. So give me a couple of seconds to do that. Good. Right now, Elaine, coming to the UK. Hello, Elaine. How are you doing today?
Hi, I am really good. How are you?
We're all very well, thank you.
Excellent.
Haven't had my coffee yet, but I'm still okay. So talk to, I know you and I were talking yesterday about your properties here in the UK and what you're doing. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing that's maybe different from Hazel's or the same? Like, what's your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I've got a very similar take on it to Hazel's got. And I want to sort of talk to what you said at the beginning, Andy, which was like, you don't really like being upsold to. But if you've got the package, you know your target market, you know what people come to the area for, and you know what they're coming to stay in your place for, it becomes less of an upsell and it becomes an amazing service that just makes their life easier and their stay more memorable. So I think it's less of talking about upselling, that would be a bad thing to do. We're upselling this package to you, but to use the right language. I mean, that's a very basic example, and of course we wouldn't say that, but if we're very careful with our language, and as we're talking to potential guests and people that have booked, and in the run up to their stay, really what you're doing is you're offering an amazing service. So as well as you're holding their hand, you're bringing them towards their stay and they're looking forward to it, you're helping them build up an amazing stay from what's going to be a great stay anyway, because they can just add to it. And if you think about talking about upgrading your stay, so having a link on the site that says upgrade your stay. So we go from just an ordinary stay to arriving. I mean, I was saying to you yesterday, Andy, there's a big property that helped set up in France. It's the middle of nowhere. It's a ski place. People stay out of season as well. But you're going to be having a lot of people come and stay somewhere like that. And to arrive to an empty fridge after a really long journey, to then have to find where the local supermarket is, to take the trek out with the car, making sure you've got the right wheels on the car so you can get down the mountain. There's a lot to think about. And if we can just turn that into arriving on holiday to, oh my gosh, now I've got to sort all this out, my holiday's not started, to, for example, in this situation, the full fridge option was just perfect, because you can arrive to a fridge that's dealt with, it's full, you're in a self-catering property. Yes, you're going to be eating out, but when you first arrive, especially with if there's children in that huge group of people coming to stay in a big property like that, you're going to need to have a lot of food in the house to keep people sustained, and to cook and create food together. And that's one of the big experiences when you go away as a group. So for me, it's to smooth the journey. So any property, I look through what the experience is going to be from the first point that they make contact with you, or even before on the website, they can see, but definitely as soon as they've made contact, they're thinking about booking or they've booked, then start to look at all the points where this can just be put in front of them. So not where can we upsell something to them, but where can we make life easier or more exciting, or this stay more memorable? And that to me is how packages are best created and can have the biggest impact, and therefore most likely take up and joyous, happy guests and more profit for us.
Yeah, I think what I quite like about that, we'll come to the hotel in a second, Nick, because I think there's some correlation here. But one of the things that happens, certainly from my experience, when you go to a hotel, you don't have nearly as much angst about your stay, because you don't have to shop. It's just a given that you're going to have to go out and eat, because, well, maybe you eat in the restaurant, but you're not having to equip yourself. You're not having to think, how do I get into the place? All those things that are a bit heavy on a guest when they're staying in a self-catered property don't exist in the hotel world. And so it might be interesting to think about, and I guess that's what you're saying, about what a guest might be preoccupied with when they're staying in a self-catered place, and how you can alleviate that preoccupation in the lead up to their stay and turn it into an upsell. So you've made a great example. Just stock the fridge if you're in a remote place where you've got lots of people coming who won't know where to go and get stuff. That's an upselling opportunity. Nick, coming on to the hotel world, I was struck when we spoke about how creative your approach is, and how you gave your employees kind of the freedom to think about structuring whatever they felt was going to be relevant for a particular guest. Do you maybe talk to us a little bit about that, and then how you think that could be applicable to the self-catered world?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, it is interesting. I think as a career hotelier who doesn't love upselling, I mean, a chance of some incremental revenue. But I think quite recently we've seen a shift in the hotel market and the hotel guests, and now we're providing an experiential service nowadays. So we've we have a really old saying that anyone can get a bed and a shower anywhere, but they come for the people, the experience, the whatever. So I think our take on upselling is it's still upselling, but it's a bit more subtle, because it's not about just swapping a bottle of wine for $50 extra. We look at upselling an experience and providing some extra value and not expecting a payment for that up front. For example, where I'm at now, we really couple regional retreats and high-end luxury, the kind of places you stay and drink your favorite red wine around the fireplace, with getting out into the Australian bush. And we add on things like four-wheel drive tours of the properties. You know, some of our properties are on 10,000 acres, so we've got four-wheel drive tracks. We can do bushwalking, and all those things are, you know, they're the kind of things that our team are upselling at every interaction along the way, but they're at no extra cost, because all we're doing is really just adding value to that stay. And we're banking, I guess you'd say that we're prepaying upsells, where we're providing the service now, knowing that you'll come back next day. And because of the experiences we're creating, the rates will have gone up, and we'll make our upsell revenue that way. But yeah, in terms of the creativity, we really, you know, I've worked for some really amazing brands and had some great opportunities to really run with it. One that I worked from, and it was really a brand built on personality and creativity. So we provided no general framework in regards to upsells or experience to the team. They were basically just empowered to create something for a guest, and that something didn't matter. So we facilitated that by, you know, we had probably the only hotel in Brisbane that had an arts and crafts room out the back, so the team could stalk someone on Facebook or Instagram and get an understanding of what they really liked, and then they would create something specific for that guest. You know, we had one of my favorite stories is we had a regular who used to always get an upgrade to a room with a bath, and we created such a great rapport with her that when she stayed and we were fully booked and we couldn't give her an upgrade, we ended up giving her a suite and put a 6-meter kiddie pool into the room, inflated, complete with rubber ducky, and a note saying, sorry, we couldn't get the room with the bath this time, but if you want us to inflate the kiddie pool. So, and it kind of created a bit of a cult following, and that we noticed that people were talking about this on TripAdvisor and review sites. So we would then get other guests requesting some sort of fun, you know, add on to their stay. I remember we had one guest who asked for us to put a photo of a movie. I can't even remember which movie star, but wanted a photo of a movie star on a bedside next to them. And the team came to me like, well, we can't just be that predictable. So we're going to print 15 photos of this guest, and we're going to hide them throughout the room, and we're going to send the guest on a treasure hunt. And once he finds all 15, he'll then need to go to the bar and present the photos, where he'll be given a t-shirt with the photo of the movie star on it. So they sort of like took it and upped them one. But I guess the key was we never really expected for a payment for creating these experiences. We ran with it, and we figured that we would get them to prepay their upsell, or I don't know, post-pay their upsell, so they would stay with us next time, and we'd capitalize on it then.
Yeah, I think that's something that came up in last week's webinar, the idea that you've already baked your upsell into your nightly price, and then you're delivering on an exceptional experience. So the analogy was, why would I pay for an expensive stay, and then you ask me to pay for the logs for the fire? You know, that would just be daft. So all of the services that you offer, if you're in a log cabin and you've got a beautiful fire, you supply the firewood, and all those other things that you supply, they're just baked into the price. And
exactly.
Yeah. And
again, I used to have a property where we had really plush bathrobes, and they used to get stolen again and again and again. And we just had this policy of never charging for them, because we figured if you're going to pay $800, $900 a night to stay in a property, if you want to steal a $30 bathrobe, go nuts, you've already bought it. So we just factor it into the price, and got a shipping container filled with bathrobes out the back. So take one every stay for a week here. But it just, people, they take them home, they have memories of their stay, they wear the bathrobe around, and when it gets a bit tattered next year, they're like, oh, well, I got to go back and stay at the hotel so I can steal another one.
Yeah. And I would say as well, we've all experienced through the last couple of years that the pricing for self-catered accommodation has gone up. You know, the demand from travelers has been, because of COVID, that much higher. But I would also put a strong wager that going forward, there is going to be an increased level of demand for our form of accommodation, mainly because there's a shortage of supply. There aren't that many second homes and places that you can rent out there. So I think there's an opportunity just to think about upping your prices. And then if you feel like you need to deliver on that in some way because you've got repeat guests or whatever, then there should be things that you can backfill that upsell price with to deliver an exceptional service. So I like the idea of pushing the price a little bit higher. I think it makes a lot of sense. Bart, let's come to you. You've kind of sat patiently listening to all of this. Do you have like a different take on? Oh, hang on. Before we come to you, there's another poll that's going up on upsell barriers. So, what barriers to upselling do you perceive? And I would say that the answers to the last question about the tech that you're using. So, the majority of people said their website and relationship building. And Touch Day Guidebook as well. So people who are upselling through their Touch Day Guidebook, which is good to see. Okay, but yeah, come to you. Like, what's your take on this, and what do you think about upselling as a thing to do? Is it a smart thing to do? Not a smart thing? How would you go about it?
Look, I love this topic because in accommodation, you're in a very unique space where you've got a limit in your supply, right? So you've got a certain number of accommodations that you can actually provide for your guests. And therefore you want to try to get as much margin as you can from those. And if you want to scale, it's very difficult to get more properties on. So if you're a short-term rental manager or something like that, it's very expensive to do. So I think that upsells in general, as long as you're not, like you said, no one wants to be upsold to. No one wants to be sold to. Right? We don't sell anymore. We provide value. And as long as you're providing value, you're going to be fine. And I think that the real opportunity has come to fruition through COVID, where we are now forced not just to provide a room or a place to sleep, we are forced to provide an experience and to cater towards people's experiences, because that's what they're desperately looking for. They want a fantastic experience, which is going to be just awesome, that they can tell their friends about. And what that does is it creates an opportunity for operators to leverage into those experiences. So someone who's on this call did one of my packages courses, and he's got a golf course near him. So now all of a sudden it's the accommodation, but he's also providing the golf. So you get it as one. So it's not an upsell as such. It's actually something which is included. He's doing a surf package as well. I had a really, really interesting call today with a lady in the US who's creating the themed accommodation, and that's her upsell. It's that experience. And so she'll have dinosaurs in that property. She will be by the beach and she will have pirate themed properties, right? And then you go, well, but is that an upsell? And it's like, well, yeah, it is, because her prices are double what everybody else's are on the market. And she's appealing to that kid's dream and the fantasy and the birthday party and all that kind of stuff. Then you can take all the franchises that you like, right? And then just kind of start to go with that theme. What I'm getting at is the opportunity isn't in the upsell. The opportunity is in the demand for experiences. And that's completely changed. And I think that the managers and owners that aren't catering towards that may lose out to the places that are offering better experiences and understanding the guests a bit more and that personalized experience. And Google was onto this a long time ago, understanding that you need to personalize the experience. And that's how I see upsells. Not about trying to sell them something. It's adding value to their overall experience. So yeah, I love this topic, and I think there's huge opportunity.
Yeah, perfect answer, Bart. That's where I kind of shifted my mental state last week, was hearing about the idea that Andy, don't worry, we're not trying to like come at you like a used car salesman. We're literally providing a better experience in a way, hopefully, that to the way Hazel does it, that it's almost seamless. Like I just see this option to buy something else that would enhance my experience, or like you're saying, Bart, you put it into the price, you deliver some kind of quirky or unusual experience around staying at your homes, and that's your upsell.
And There's one really important thing that I do want to address, which I don't think anyone has talked about yet. With the upsells, it creates a lot of opportunity for partnership with local businesses around you, and I think that that's something that should quite often we don't really think that way in terms of our social media, in terms of our marketing, in terms of everything that we do. But as soon as you create a partnership and a strong partnership with a local restaurant or a few local restaurants or a cafe or the surf club or the golf place or whatever it is, then one, it's going to help you in the local community as being kind of a leader and a sticking point in the middle of it. You can get more profit, so you can make more money out of it. But also from a marketing perspective, it gives you something to talk about. When you're sitting there with a room and you're like, what do I put on my social media? I don't know. But if you can go and take pictures of your partner's food, I mean, like business partner's food, then you go, wow, that's awesome. So that's the other side of upsells to really not underestimate, is that it creates a huge marketing opportunity and business and relationship community building opportunity as well.
Yeah, that addresses some of the responses that came from that last question. Just looking through a few of the responses, some people aren't confident that their guests will buy. One person says they don't want to make their guests feel uncomfortable. Some don't know where to start. Some don't even know if it's worth the effort. So I think some of these things that we're talking about here are hopefully shifting the mindset, particularly with those who say they're not confident guests will buy or they don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. That was me. That was like kind of me at the start of the call. And if we can think about it being more about delivering an exceptional experience through some of the things that you've described, Bart, and Nick as well, in fact, Elaine too, and then also the stuff that you do through your website, Hazel, which is it's there if you want to buy it, then I think we can kind of shift away from it being, I would kind of get over yourself a bit about, you're not confident the guests will buy or that you don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. Sure, if you're kind of banging on the, the used car salesman, but otherwise I would shift mindset a bit here, not kind of dwell too much on that, but think about how you can upsell the experience. I think that's an important takeaway. In terms of it not being worth the effort, I mean, Hazel, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, but you did say 1 in 5 are buying it. So it sounds to me like you think it is worth the effort. You're making enough money from that for it to be worth having set it all up.
Definitely. I think also touching on the experience thing, in the last 18 months during, COVID, virtually every second booking that came in, or even more than that, was for an experience. People were looking to spend money and wanted to feel nurtured. They wanted to think somebody else is taking all the hassle out of this for me. They've put together a fantastic thing. I'm only going to be there for 2 or 3 days, and I don't really have the time or the mindset to start researching myself. And this wonderful person has just packaged this all up for me, and I can just visualize and see what I'm going to have when I get there. And from my point of view, it wasn't difficult to do that. I think I mentioned that the biggest thing is working out what it is you want to be able to offer those guests in your area. And so for me, food and wine and the helicopter tours and spa treatments were the key things that I worked out were what wanted. I did a little bit of research on what people are searching for on the internet. And the very first package that I put up was my pamper package. And I just got booking after booking after booking coming in for that, to the point where, I don't have enough accommodation to be able to offer it out. And there's no one else in our area doing it. And, all I did was go to our local spa place, talk to them about what I was going to do. They offered me up a discounted rate for a couple's spa treatment. I didn't even ask them for that, but I packaged that into my product at the full price, so that if the guest chooses to go and look at the spa place's own menu, they see the price that I've incorporated into that. So, and that was really simple to do. It might be easier living in a smaller community. I mean, McLaren Vale is not a large place, so perhaps those links with businesses is much easier to create in a small community. But it's really key, and I think that those businesses are marketing me as much as I'm marketing them. So it's a three-way win for two or three businesses and the guest. They all get something. And and I think, like you said, they don't even maybe realize that they've been upsold to. It's because it's all there in one price. And if they choose to add on a few extra things, when they're paying for the package, that there's nobody pressurizing them. It's there if they want it.
Yeah, it's a really well articulated response, Hazel, that it doesn't need to be rocket science. It's essentially what you did was broker relationships that you had with local businesses. And in fact, it's a question that one of the attendees has asked, which I know Bart is mid-replying to that answer. The question, I don't know if everyone could see the Q&A question, but it was an interesting one. It says Bart is correct about partnering with local businesses. We send a huge number of people to local businesses. What is lacking is the infrastructure to monitor. Sorry, Bart, when you answered it, it disappeared from my.
Yeah, I know. I just realized that. I just felt terrible. I was like, oh no.
That's okay. I found it again. What's lacking is the infrastructure to monetize that process. This is the real opportunity. And the only question I have is whether TouchStay is the company to provide it, like your thought process there. But also, it's an extremely difficult thing for us to do. Not to say we won't do it, but it's certainly challenging. So, Bart, you've replied, but do you want to elaborate on that, and for the rest of everyone who might not have seen it?
This is a little bit of a handball to Hazel, because Hazel was the one who introduced me to some of these great processes in terms of forming those relationships and having them very effective. And in terms of making the money work, you've got different points where you can make money. So let's say it's a pamper package or a helicopter flight, which Hazel offers, or whatever it is. You have an opportunity to charge a little bit more on your own website. And that's just simply through a checkout system. And I think with TouchStay and a few different tools, nothing too complicated, you can make it work. So you've got an opportunity to make a little bit of money there. And then when you make the booking with the provider, you can make money if they've given you some sort of a discount as well. So you have these kind of multiple opportunities to make a little bit of money on there. Is it worth it? It depends on the price point, how much time. But generally, it should be this. It should be they make the order, you make a phone call, you say, hey, I've got a booking for 2 people for Friday, and you put down the phone and you've just made $50. And if you can't do it, you get a VA to do it. Depending on how big your business is. So there is a little bit of manual process. And I do think that at this stage, it's going to be something which is necessary. Hazel, I'm going to do a little bit of handballing to you as well, because you do it all the time.
Yeah, so I actually don't make very many phone calls these days, because I can book most of those experiences online. So literally, as soon as that comes in, the following morning, I hop online to the restaurant, I book the person in for the day and the time. I hop onto the spa treatment place and I book it in under my name, so I get the right price, and I get emailed my confirmation. For the wine tastings, nearly all our cellar doors now, because of COVID, they prefer to take bookings. So I hop onto their website, I make the booking, and I've got various wineries who will give my guests a complimentary tasting. So I have a code that I put in at checkout, so I don't get charged. So I can have all of that arranged without even picking up the phone. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Nancy McAleer, who some people may know, she runs a Florida rental listing site. It's called Florida Vacation Rental by Owners. She's an upselling queen, but she does it simply through affiliate links. So this is another option you could do if you want it to be low maintenance. So she works in Florida, and so luckily enough, there are some big organizations, big tourist organizations in Florida. So they're all signed up to an affiliate platform, and she simply goes there and grabs an affiliate link, and she doesn't make a ton of money, but she's got a lot of guests coming through, and she's just recommending to go to certain places. And in recommending, using a referral link, she is able to make a little bit of money there. She also mentioned there was a similar platform in Australia, and I've forgotten what it is. So I think what we'll do is we'll try and dig that out and share that when we send around the recording post call. But you'd be surprised if there's an affiliate site there and you want to work with a local partner, if you can demonstrate to them the number of guests you've got coming through your property and the likelihood that they are going to go and do these things in the local area, then encourage encourage that local partner to go put themselves on one of these affiliate sites. That's the cost of doing business with you. If you want to recommend that partner, then they need to be on this site. That should be the way you pitch it. And then when they're on that site, you can just go and grab the referral link and you'll make some money there. So that's a really low tech way of doing it. So we'll share that after the call. Nancy had a really great idea on how to do that. Another person on the call had asked to hear about suggestions on upselling within a budget hotel where guests do not have high disposable incomes. And I think that kind of question could translate into the self-catered world as well. Nick, you basically replied saying upselling experience, memories are free, but are priceless, which is a very good point. But what sort of things, I know you touched on it a little bit, but if we were to kind of tangibly, what sort of things might you be able to do if you don't have people with high disposable incomes and you're trying to sell them something?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. To be honest, I think I know Paul, but I sent that response, so he'll have a joke. But knowing I quickly passed out that comment and then thought, but there's a big difference, I guess, between being an operational GM who needs to drive the bottom line and saying someone else going, I'll just provide an experience and a memory. But I really think that there's and I've worked for a lot of groups where the guest experience really can justify a little bit of lost revenue from an upsell experience. So, you might even be looking at, I stayed at a property recently and they had a guest service agent who obviously loved doing origami, because when I checked in, my kids all got a little origami folded animal. They had actually spoken to me beforehand going, oh, you're staying with kids, can you give us a little bit of information about them? And I happened to mention that my son loves elephants and my daughter loves fairies. And when we checked in, there was just even a hand-folded origami elephant and a hand-folded origami fairy. And that cost them literally nothing. And my kids carried around those that origami until they probably lost them in the pool, probably. But they really created, and my daughter still remembers that place, right? So it's these little touches that you can do by taking in clues about who your guests are, why they're staying, anyone, if families traveling, that's so easy. You just got to keep kids happy. The parents, all they want is to have half an hour of no yelling children. So if you've got anything that will keep your kids happy, you win the kids for life, because they got a happy memory of the hotel, and the parents are guests for life as well. Again, we used to, and maybe not the best example for a budget hotel, but at a large Sydney property, we had a kids arrival program, and every time we had a kid under 6 check in, the concierge used to go and grab, we had a vision of exactly how it had to be, that little radio flyer, the red trolley that you see in like the American movies, and it was to be packed with like little toys and the kind of things that we could pick up from, you can get some cheap stuff down at Kmart or the $2 shop, and as the kid walks through the lobby, the concierge would pull the trolley over, meet them halfway and go, all right, your parents are checking in there, you have to come in and be really important and check in with me. And we had a children's registration card, and it went through with like, my favorite food is, my favorite color, my favorite. So the kid got to do their paperwork too, and then they got to pick something out of that red trolley. As I said, you can buy some pretty cheap things from places like Kmart or the Reject Shop that'll keep kids entertained for 6 or 7 seconds on a holiday. But in the background, what we were doing is creating, the kid felt needed, they felt important because they were filling in the paperwork. And what we were also doing, of course, is feeding that information through the hotel and the operational departments. So when the parents showed up at the restaurant, we already know that the kid's favorite meal is spaghetti bolognese. So we're going, oh, do you want the spaghetti now, or do you want to wait for 20 minutes? So creating that little seamless link and that kind of stuff. It's the problem is having the idea and the vision. I tend to come out with these things, and I understand that the hardest thing is a little bit of inspiration. It's 90% inspiration, and then the execution is usually the easiest part. But yeah, it's looking at what you can do, what's unique to your team, what can they do? Do they have skills? Maybe you've got a budget hotel, but you've got a staff member who can speak 4 languages. So why not offer, and if it's in a location near an airport, you can go, oh, we're offering free German lessons for 15 minutes a day kind of thing. Or, again, I had a property and one of my team members was studying to be a yoga instructor. So she was on 3 days a week, and we would do yoga sessions for half an hour on those days. And That all that cost me was a couple of yoga mats that we'd set up in a function room with some candles and one of those machines that makes the nice smells and whatever they're called. And yeah,
diffuser, I think.
Diffuser, yeah, and some crystals and booga booga music and that kind of stuff. But
yeah, Nick, I'm going to interrupt you there because I want to ask Elaine about this as well. But so Elaine, there's a question coming about how maybe self-caters could create experiences like this that don't cost much money. So keep that in your thought. But Nick, I was thinking, the trolley that comes out for the kid to check in, I thought was a genius idea. And those sort of things, like you said, it's born out of creativity, the solution. It's not necessarily that there's a technological thing you can do or a package you can do or a thing you can plug into. It's literally so in my thinking there is that it doesn't matter how cheap your place to stay is, and I mean cheap in kind of price point, but not experience. You can just find there's always something interesting or a hook that you've got about your place that you can make it kind of interesting.
It's just about understanding your guest. Who is your target market? What are they there for? And what appeals to those people? What are they looking for? And how can you create an activation around that? Basically, you can do anything as long as you target it right. It doesn't matter what it is. And people at the end of the day, 10 years later, they're not going to remember what you actually did, but they'll remember the way you made them feel. And they'll always be staying there again and again. And they might go, you know what? Maybe there's other places I can afford to stay at a better place now, but hey, I still remember when I stayed at the IBIS at the airport, they had that German lessons and it inspired me to take on German lessons. And so I always stay at that property. They'll create that connection.
Yeah, good call. I like that. It's I like that thinking. Okay, Elaine.
Hello.
Can some of those things be translated into the self-cater world? Like how could people?
I mean, most definitely. I think in the self-catering world, it's actually even easier for us because we have less guests in one particular property. So there's less scope to have to create loads and loads and loads of different things. And actually, one of the things that we can do as self-caterers is really use this to our advantage in that we can really offer a very personal experience to that particular guest because we have the opportunity to, we get caught up in, and I don't get me wrong, I love technology and I love automation, but we do get caught up in trying to automate so many things when in actual fact, we have the time to pick up the phone, have a chat with that guest and start to understand who they are. And we can draw out a lot of the information that Nick mentioned to make the stay very, very personal. And because it's such a smaller scale, that one property, there's not multiple rooms in that one property like in a hotel. Therefore, you could in effect have to create multiple different experiences. Actually, we can create a few very targeted experiences based on the few types of people that are going to be coming to stay. So I think very much it can be easily translated, in fact, maybe even easier than on the larger scale of the hotel. And I think it's down to us as individuals to get to understand and know our guests, and we've got the opportunity to do that. And I think something that Nick said, which is useful here as well, is that the way that Nick goes about things from what I'm seeing is that there's no rules. There's no rules. It is just about you can create whatever it is that you want. And I think that's we tend to look for, how do we do things? Well, we can figure that out and make it, we do whatever we want within the realms of what we have available and make those decisions ourselves. So I think we really, really can do that. I love what Nick said.
Funnily enough, I actually had one rule at my last hotel, and that was
one is good.
They were never allowed to gift someone a bottle of wine and cheese because we could do better than that. Was my mindset. If that's all you can come up with, go get a job at.
Don't bother. That's so good. I love that.
But if you've got a 2-bedroom apartment, if you've got a 1-bedroom studio, if you've got a 5-bedroom villa, you're in a location, and you're in a location, you got that villa for a reason, or that apartment for a reason. What was that reason? It wasn't just a bed. I'm sure it wasn't a bed. Maybe you inherited it and you like got this family thing that you have to run and it's a pain in the ass. But most times you've chosen it for a reason. What is it about that place that's special? What is it about the city or the town or the local village or the what? And what experience can you craft around that? What can you bring that TripAdvisor can't bring, that someone searching through Google for hours gets frustrated and you could answer straight away? Those kind of things are upselling experiences. You're not charging for them. They're in your price, like we said earlier in the call. But I think that's the moment that creativity can kind of kick in without having to spend a ton of money. One question, how does the EU package directive affect the risk providing packages like this? That actually came up in the question last week. So we'll share the link to last week's call. As we remember it, it's not an issue if it's upsold after the booking because it's not part of the package. However, we will share the link to last week's webinar, and perhaps we can even dig out the time in the webinar where that question's answered. Second question's come up, what about liability and risk? You might expose yourself to guests when making third-party recommendations, especially, I mean, again, that question was answered last week. We'll point you to that, but Nick, you've got a response on that?
I just know with that, just make sure if you're selling on their behalf, just make sure you got a copy of their insurance and hands off. Yeah. Okay. All right. So sorry to William and Manjit, we can't answer that question directly, but we will point you to the answer that one of the panelists gave, who is very skilled at this kind of stuff, last week. Question from Lisa. I have a little kids pack that has some quizzes, colouring in crayons, and a game all in one little pack that is made in Australia. It costs about $1 each. Brilliant. Perfect. So not a question, just a statement. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. We are in the last few minutes. So if there's anybody else on the call that has a question that they would like to ask, please do so. If you came onto the call and you were expecting us to talk about something else or answer something else in a different way, now's your time to hold us accountable and say, wait, I wanted the answer to this question. That's why I came on this webinar. If you are that person and you want that answer, type your message. Amber says, thanks everyone, great session. So many fab ideas. Great. Thank you, Amber. Anybody else on the panel want to chime in and say something whilst we are waiting for any questions that might come in? Anyone got anything extra to add?
I think for me, just to get started, just try something, ask a few questions. Don't overthink it. Don't turn it into some massive thing. How am I going to create 5 packages right now? Just think of one way that can make that guest experience either easier or more memorable, more fun. Just if you've got families, for example, it's hard traveling with family. So think, how can you make that easier for the guest? That's just a few questions that you could ask yourself and just craft something based on that. Just one thing, just start with one.
I think that's really great advice. And again, my only addition is don't be afraid of failure. Again, in a very, very edgy lifestyle property, I had a rule that was, if you create an experience or give a guest an amenity and there's not a 10% chance that me as the GM is going to be hauled out in front of everyone and have to apologize to that guest, then it wasn't edgy enough and it wasn't living up to the brand expectations. So that was, and that led on, like literally the team just run with stuff like that because it just unlocks this whole world. And it was really, I don't know if this is the right forum, but they created then this arrival gift for staff of the hotel group. So it was something that was probably a little bit too racy to go to guests, but whenever any of our team from the other hotels would stay at our property, they would get this adult orientated welcoming gift in their room. And it was actually really cool done. It was just like a nice display, but it had everything from like body butter through to some other items, but it was just something really edgy and something very different that you would never expect to get as a gift from a hotel. So yeah, it brought on a lot of creativity, letting the team know that you were there to back them up and that there was going to be no issues.
Cool, I like it. I came in late, was doing breakfasts. Helen, the world of operating a business like this. Yep, we'll send you the replay. Bart, any closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, look, Elaine, you're the best. Saying get started is probably the best final advice for anyone that's out there. That, you know, that's the hardest part, right? And I always loathe seeing people get really stressed about their stuff and not have the confidence to go forward. And you don't have to go all in and commit to some crazy package that with all these different bits and pieces. Find out what you've got in the local area, make a few phone calls, and then rather than going full hog and designing this whole system that you've got to implement on your website and doing all of this crazy stuff, send out an email, send out a text message to a bunch of guests that are coming and saying, hey, we've got this special deal, a special offer. What do you think? Give them a phone call. Just say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. Is it a good idea? Is it something that would interest you? And then that's going to give you immediate feedback to then go, oh, cool, I'm onto something which is good. And then you can build out the package, the website, and everything else that comes later on. But you're going to, like Nick said, you're going to fail a bunch of times. You're going to ask the questions. They're going to say, oh, that's terrible. And then you're going to be ready to get going once you get that experience.
It's really valid. And again, that I've done a design thinking course, and it's all about failing often and failing fast. And you don't need to create the be all and end all. You create little bits and you test it and you adapt what works. And one of the funny anecdotes I heard from that session was that if you guys remember what a BlackBerry was back in the 80s, the first ever BlackBerry was actually a bar of soap that was painted black. And the founder of BlackBerry used to take it around, pull it out, start tapping at it, and he would just look around to see who showed interest in what he was doing and go, what is that? And he's like, oh, that's my BlackBerry. And enough people were like, what's going on? Like, I've never seen that. What is it? And then he was like, okay, there's actually interest in a handheld device that can organize my life. And that's literally how BlackBerry came about.
Nice story to end with. Thank you, Nick. The art of trying and failing and then iterating and capturing interest in the process. So yeah, a combination of Bart, Elaine, and Nick there. Perfect. We don't have any other questions. Although Helen has confirmed that she has upsells on her website, and she does do a series of automation emails that go out after they've booked. So a little bit along the lines of what you're saying, Bart, but you know, not quite as simple, but still that idea of just putting it out there. Good. Well, to be honest, as a final question, did you find it helpful? Yes or no? As a recap, I started last week going into the first of the webinars thinking I don't like being upsold to, and come out this end of this webinar, and the sum of the two webinars have proved to me that it's not about selling to the guest. It's not about being the used car salesman. It's about finding something a little different, something a little quirky, something nice and easy, seamless for the guests to either experience or buy. And thank you all for making that very obvious now. And thank you all for attendees. I know a lot of you found it useful because you've made comments, so thank you. And 100% of you have said, yes, you did find it useful, so that's great. So for that reason, thank you, panelists. Clearly, the stuff you've said has resonated with people. I appreciate you having spent an hour of your time today, this morning, this evening. Some great insights and some great comments. Thank you all. Hazel, any closing remarks?
I guess just once you've check out our future planned webinars, they're on the website. And if you think you might make yourself a good panelist, then please get in touch. We'd be really interested to hear from you. You can email me at hazel@touchday.com, and we'll see if we can fit you into one of our future webinars. Thank you all for attending today.
Actually, there is one other question. No, we'll answer that separately. Manjit, I think it was just some other comment he'd made. Jane, does anyone have a formula for pricing for a package? I think maybe we will share. Hazel, maybe you could just share. Go on, Bart, do you want to say something?
Oh, the formula, yes, yeah, I do. Get in touch, I think maybe afterwards, but It's pretty much you figure it out, then you figure out your like 20% on top for your time kind of a thing. It's nothing, there's not kind of rocket science to it. Look, it's just general pricing. It's based on what people are willing to pay rather than what it's worth. So does that make sense? But the 20% on top will get you going. Then you might want to get a bit more granular as you go. There's one last thing that I want to add, by the way. This is a big tip for everyone. There's a beautiful host of mine. She was probably one of my first ever clients. Got a beautiful alpaca farm, and people come for the alpacas and they just love it. And they always do tours for free as part of the experience. She started doing them as upsells to say, hey, actually, if you want a couple of hours tour, we'll give a bit more care to it. And she's basically got 40% more margin on every single booking now as an average, because she's just charging for that service that people were going to do anyway. She would have provided for free. So I guess when Nick is saying, hey, you can provide it as part of the package, you can also split these things out, and people won't begrudge you for you spending that time with them, especially if you're doing that sort of stuff. Kayaks as well. If you've got your own kayaks, you can charge people for that. And there's a few other bits and pieces you can charge for.
Okay, thank you, Bart. Chris, I think the Aussie site for adding on experience is called Viator. I mean, yes, Chris, one of them is Viator. It's a global one, but there was an Aussie specific one which we'll dig out and we'll share in the notes. Great, thank you all again, and hope you have a good rest of your day. And we'll see you soon. Cheerio, guys.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
See you, Bart. Thanks.